For normal dances, the band would be a four-piece. Piano, accordion, fiddle, piano or keyboards, and drums. For some dancers, some of the bigger Scottish dancers, would have a second accordion. That would have been a lad called Alan Coulson, much of the time. For recordings and broadcasts, we would augment the band with a bass player, who would be a guest bass player. Various accordionists played second accordion. Alan Coulson, I've mentioned. Neil Barron, who has his own band. He played with us quite a while, making recordings and broadcasts. So it would be a six-piece for those kind of dancers, but normally we'd play with fours. We have actually recorded as a four-piece, which was, I think, quite a feat because it's you're very exposed. John Whitehead, the drummer, Robert's brother, was studying history. He was still in the sixth form when the band was formed, and he came up with the name Danelaw. I wouldn't like to be precise about the dates, but the east coast of England, from probably North Yorkshire south down to Kent, was called the Danelaw. It was ruled over by the Danes, and that's how the name came about. We picked something that didn't refer so much to Northumberland, but certainly to the eastern seaboard of England. Yes, we recorded broadcasts with Radio Newcastle. I think the first one was 1972. I'd have to check that. We did a series of them right through the 70s.
Was that for a specific program?
That was, yes, it was a barn dance type program.
Okay.
In those days, it was not unusual for television companies and to some extent, well, radio companies to have some traditional music programs. And these were actually recorded at dances, so people were dancing, but it was rather formalised. What happened was the program went ahead, whether people were on the floor or not, but the noise of the dancers enjoying the dancing was part and parcel of the recording. I think in '79 we did our first Radio Scotland broadcast, and we broadcast both from studios and outdoor broadcasts with Radio Scotland. So that was the broadcast side of things, and we broadcast quite regularly in the early years, and very often the broadcasts were repeated on air later in the year. As far as record labels concerned, certainly in my time, we didn't have any specific label. We made an early recording in the early 70s in Glasgow, which was not entirely successful. We made one or two others, and the last one that I think I made was in probably about 1990 or thereabouts. We'd been together for 21 years, so we did a tape. We might have done a CD, but there was questions about the quality of the CDs that these companies were producing, so we didn't go down that road. With the Danelaw, one of the first engagements that we had was appearing on television on a program called Opportunity Knocks. Opportunity Knocks perhaps was the grandfather of the X Factor or Britain's Got Talent. It was a talent show.
Was it local?
No, this was, I think it was Thames Television, but it was the ITV network.
Okay.
It was broadcast nationwide. I missed the recordings on the Saturday, simply because I was chairing a meeting of my professional association here at Newcastle University on the Saturday. I got the train down to London and arrived at the studios too late to take part in the rehearsals. So the Sunday morning we had further rehearsals, and then we did the recording. And it was interesting. We'd had to audition for this, and there was a guy called Hughie Green was the compere, well known at the time on television. And we went along, and there were several pop groups, there were soloists, singers, and a whole mix, instrumentalists. And we did our spot, and he came up and said, that was fine. He says, we're going to put you through. But he said, do you think you could get some dancers? Because he said, you're all sitting playing there wonderfully, but there's no movement, whereas with the pop groups, people were jumping around and whatnot, you see. So we thought we would try and get a small group of Scottish dancers to do a dance, and we would play the set that we played at the audition. That didn't materialise. What did materialise were two very young girls, probably about 6 or 7, 8 years of age, Irish dancers. So we had to change what we were going to play, and we had about a fortnight to do it. And what we did was a set of 5 32-bar Irish reels. And they danced, and that took some of the camera time off the band. We didn't sit to play, we stood in a kind of an arc and played. We didn't have a caller.
No call.
Normally for village dancers, people knew how to do the dances. For the Scottish dancers, they all had little cribs, little books that give them the instructions. So when a dance was called, you either knew it or you used your crib to do it and take part in the set. So there would be MCs calling the dancers. When I say calling the dancers, announcing the dancers. But it was very rare. It was only until probably in the late 80s and 90s that callers became more common, because people didn't know the dances, so they had to be told how to do them. And I've got to say, I'm not a great fan of callers talking over the music. That's just a personal whim. I mean, we didn't play every Friday and Saturday night, every weekend of the year. I didn't. Most of the music would be most of the dances would be in September and May, and I might go a couple of weeks without playing, but it wouldn't have been fair on the family. We visited Denmark to play for a Scottish dance in Copenhagen. That was a very interesting weekend. I went to France on a folk tour playing the fiddle for Irish group of dancers, or group of Irish dancers more specifically. And I also went to North Carolina to play for some sword dancers on one of Jimmy Carter's Friendship Force exchanges. And but as far as dancers here were concerned, I think the farthest north that I went with the band was Aberdeen, and the farthest south was Plymouth. So it's quite a distance between the two, not on the same night or on consecutive nights. There was a season for dancing, which usually started in September. Even the broadcasts reflected that. During the summer months, they would have repeats of broadcasts that recorded earlier in the year and had been broadcast at the time but were repeated. But the new broadcasts, the new bands, would be starting in September, and they would go through to May or thereabouts.